when I say welcome to, you say cousin closet. Welcome to cousin closet. Welcome to cousin closet. Hey girls and gays and theys, and apparently there are some straight men who listen to the pod. So I just started this episode without my most important accessory for today. I'm your host, Hermana Thompson, aka Sister Thompson, and today I'm going to be taking on my first solo episode without Emily, which is mostly it's terrifying. There's something invigorating about it because I just don't know what's going to happen. She's funny. She make me laugh. And when I'm by myself, I'm just kind of, I'm all alone. There's no one here beside me. Oh my God, I really have to limit the singing because usually it's Emily who is able to stop me from continuing on by just speaking. You see, I could accidentally go on and on and on for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes, an hour singing the same song, and there's no one here to tell me to shut the fuck up. Welcome to part 2 of Unpacking My Mormon Mission. If you have not listened to part 1, what are you doing? Get over there. Go listen. I am getting into the logistics of the Mormon church, growing up in the church, my decision to serve a Mormon mission, what that looks like, some general ideas around that. I am also just now realizing I wasn't going to get into my outfit because it's the same as it was last week, but I did just notice something different. After I just went pee, you want to know what I did? I pulled up my black Calvin Klein panties over the top of my corset on accident, but it's kind of working. It's kind of cunty. I'm a little sad I didn't do this last episode, but glad that we have this new version. I didn't zip up or button my shorts or do my belt because I don't want to. That's all it comes down to. Everything about my outfit is still the same though. My big square blue light glasses, my dad's oversized suit coat, my missionary name tag, my pinstripe shorts, knee-high stockings, and scrunchy boots. I did just describe myself to somebody else as a Mormon pirate slut, and I think that's a pretty good, pretty accurate description of what I'm working with right now. If you forgot, the prompt Emily gave us for last week was duality. I am embodying this duality again as both a sister and an elder of the Mormon Church. Let's get into it, okay? So for this episode, I pulled out my mission scriptures, which is the Book of Mormon. If you're not watching, you don't see that I'm holding an absolutely tattered copy of the Book of Mormon. Papers just flinging out. I read this thing to its core. There are notes in every byline. Should I just flip to a random page of my scriptures and either read a verse or read a note or see what kind of thing I have sticking out? Because I think that could be fun. Let's see what we're working with here. I just opened to a page. Glued into the Book of Mormon is an old Mormon ad. Now, Mormons in the 90s had all kinds of incredible ads. Have you ever seen the ones that say, family, it's about time? What about the ones where somebody has painted themselves into a corner, or someone has eaten so much trash that their mouth has expanded and stretched like a trash-filled balloon, and it tells you to watch what you say? Not sure if that made any sense, but the Mormon ad that was glued into my scriptures is a woman on her knees, and it says, send an email. And no, I did not say email. I said, send a knee mail. That means say your prayers, kids, on your knees. I've got a lot of things that just fell out. Missionaries have to do studies every single day. So let me just get into the mission schedule. You wake up at 6:30. Immediately, you say your prayers, okay? Don't skip those. And don't wake up at 6:31 because exact obedience brings blessings. After you say your prayers, put on your little clothes, exercise. Sometimes this looks like laying on the ground and you're lifting up your legs like, I'm so tired. Please don't make me do anything. Sometimes this looks like doing yoga to Enya and your companion saying, this doesn't really feel like church music, and me saying, you don't know where my attention is drawn. My attention is drawn to Christ. Other times that looks like using your apartment gym. Sometimes that also looks like going on a little run. There was a point in time where my mission president said everyone is gaining too much weight. Everyone must get out of the house for cardio every day, which is awful. I will say, I was a little toxically positive on my mission. I can't blame myself because I was just doing my best. I really felt like there was nowhere else in the world that I should be, nor anywhere else that I would have a greater impact. There was nothing else. Like, my sense of self, my self-worth was through the roof, because if I knew I was a good missionary, then I felt like I was a good person. And to me, being a good missionary was talking to anyone you see, not being too shy, being friends with all of the missionaries, having a solid testimony, bringing a lot of new people in, and also keeping a positive attitude. Now, I recognize that I was toxically positive on my mission as my own coping mechanism. I want to go ahead and shout out anyone who I was ever annoying to. So sorry, girl. I actually specifically remember one time my companion was like, I hate running. I can't run unless I have my headphones in, which technically was against the mission rules. You can have like an iPod or some kind of device that has church/mission music on it, but you are not supposed to listen to it with headphones. My guess is that this is to try to prevent anyone from being disobedient. My sweet angel companion, she said to me, I can't do this unless I have my headphones on. And I said, I'm so sorry, sweetie. That's against the rules. And I wouldn't let her use her headphones. And I still think about that to this day, about how annoying that is, how I was just on my high horse and like I want to punish myself for that. I will say, this companion and I did end up becoming best friends. We spent a total of 18 weeks together. Missions cycle around these 6-week periods called transfers. So every 6 weeks you find out, am I staying in this area with this companion or am I moving to another area with a new companion? So she and I had been together for 12 weeks and we did not get along. One time she looked at me and she said, Hermana, you are repulsive. Just get a pause for that. Like, repulsive? That's pretty mean. She was from Guatemala. And so you know what? I gave her the benefit of the doubt. And I said, you know what? That's actually like pretty mean and aggressive in English. And she was like, yeah, I meant it to be. So sometimes you have a companion who hates you and sometimes you have a companion who loves you. Bottom line is you don't get a pick and you don't get a swap. But this companion and I, we did after the 12-week mark, knowing we were going into another 6 weeks together, look at each other and decide, how are we going to do this, girl? Because hating each other, not going to work out. Anyway, love her. I honestly loved all of my companions. Everyone, we all had a lot of fun. No one was like really mean to me. And ultimately, I didn't have any companions who didn't like to laugh. And that changes everything. Because if you have a companion who can laugh with you, you can get through all of the weird shit, you know? Like if you are spending your whole day knocking on random people's doors, them answering, and you being like, hi, my name is Sister Thompson. I'm a representative from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Would you like to hear a message about our Savior Jesus Christ today? If you've been doing that all day and everyone has just been looking at you like you were an alien living in a simulation, and then you get home and you also hate your companion, that's tough. But when you get home and you can be like, I'm going to teach you how to do a handstand twerk on the wall on our bed. You know, like if you have that rapport, it's kind of a nice balance. I will say I did try to teach that companion how to twerk on the wall on my bed. It was a twin bed, by the way, always. My hand slipped off said bed and I did catapult myself headfirst into the floor. But you know what? At least I was still twerking on the wall as a missionary. Not in public, but in the privacy of my own home. I was still doing my favorite things. I was twerking on the wall. In one area, I had my own bathroom. So I would fill up that bathtub, take in the tiny, mini, portable DVD player, and I would watch the movie, The Testaments. That is a Mormon movie, basically depicting Book of Mormon stories. Is it Book of Mormon? I think it is. But they were live action. And kind of good. I'll say it. I think I need to watch it again. Sometime I should probably do another rewatch of the Testaments and see what's fresh on my mind after that, because there were a lot of good quotes. Anyway, missionary life is just really interesting, and you really never know what's going to happen. I got distracted. All of this was starting for me talking about the schedule of a missionary, but here we are. You wake up, you exercise, you get ready, you have breakfast, and you start your studies at, on the dot, well, let's see, is it 8:30? 8? Man, I can't remember exactly. But everything you do as a missionary, you are really looking to do it on the dot. Exact obedience was very much so heavily influenced in my mission by my mission president. He felt like that was the ultimate form of commitment or dedication to God, and that sacrifice was really important. I don't really feel like now that like 1 minute would have been a huge difference, but I do recognize that I was too afraid of experiencing shame to be a disobedient missionary. I was too afraid of something bad happening outside of me because of my actions. So I really leaned into positivity, exact obedience, and trying to just make everything fun by being like, I'm a servant of the Lord. Why wouldn't everyone be smiling and laughing every day? I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. I wake up and I don't even miss my mom. I don't even miss my friends. I don't even miss listening to Justin Bieber or the 1975 or any of these other bands that I desperately miss. Man, I think one of the hardest things about doing this by my own is that I'm just going to ramble and I'm going to have no idea if I'm taking this anywhere. I digress. Studies, very important. So you have an hour of personal study in the morning where you can read any of the scriptures. So that's the Book of Mormon, the Old Testament, the New Testament. There's a book called The Doctrine and Covenants, which is like revelation given to Joseph Smith, first modern day prophet. And there's The Pearl of Great Price, which was also, it's kind of its own thing. The Pearl of Great Price is kind of freaky deaky. And it also was something that was revealed and translated, but it's like goes back to Abraham. There's a lot of things I don't understand. Anyway, you can read any of those. There's also some other approved books that you get. One of them is called Jesus the Christ, and it's this absolute unit, chunky chunker book about Jesus, and I was lapping it up. The thing about me, though, I never learned how to study because of the ADHD thing. I just learned how to kind of try to figure out why something is the way it is. That usually ends up in me reading a sentence and then going back through and dissecting the etymology of each of the words and trying to make a complete picture of what I'm reading. I would do this shit all the time. Now, after personal study, you would do companionship study, where you and your companion would get together. You'd talk about what you studied in your personal studies, which usually it was encouraged that you were studying to prepare for the lessons that you would be teaching that day. It wasn't mandatory, but it was encouraged. Because you also were doing a ton of planning as a missionary. Every night before bed, you're planning for the next day, and once a week, you are planning for the week ahead. Planning is very important. So you're always trying to have an idea of what you're going to teach and what you can study in order to be better prepared. So there's personal study for an hour, companionship study for an hour. And then if you're a new missionary, there is an hour of training where your senior companion, so the companion who's been there longer, sits down with you and you go through a different kind of missionary training. Now, if you're speaking a different language, you also have an hour of language study. So there was a period of time on my mission where you're waking up and doing 4 hours of studies before you leave the house. Looking back, that's kind of my ideal. Like, I have tried to get myself back onto the missionary schedule just because I really loved the fulfillment of waking up knowing exactly what I was doing and starting the day learning and like gleaning wisdom from something. I don't have the same motivation to do that when there isn't the like rigidity or chance that I'm going to get sent home or in trouble or like tattled on for not doing that. So yeah, after your studies, then you leave the house. Okay, this could be to go teach a lesson at someone's house. So this is maybe somebody who you met on the street walking from the grocery store. Most of the time when you meet people on the street, there's no rhyme or reason for why you should be approaching them or talking to them, but you are trained to really look for any way to talk to anyone and to make anything into a lesson or a teaching opportunity, which I was obsessed with. Oh, interesting. You tell me about your sick mother. Well, would you like to be with her for forever? I'm gasping because, like, that's actually something I would do, but it was at the time coming from a place of I really do believe we have the answer that will cure everything for people ultimately. Like, oh, you have a sick mom. It's my duty to tell you about this religion because you need to be baptized in this church so that all of your family receive all of these blessings, all go to the temple together, be sealed together for time and all eternity, which is basically just the way of saying you and your family are going to be together after you die, but only if you're able to do that with worthiness in the temple. I really felt like it was my duty to tell people, like, I have the solution. I know how you can be forgiven of your sins. I know how you can be with your family forever. I know how you can heal your addiction. I know how you can XYZ. I really believed that I did know and that I was this liaison for God to speak through me to make people's lives better. Now, it's interesting to talk about my mission because there's a lot of dual feelings, right? I didn't realize when I was going into my mission that I was essentially paying to be a salesperson for an organization. From my perspective, I was volunteering to do the Lord's work, period. Which, again, depending on who you're talking to, that's what I did. And also, now that I can recognize the church as more of an organization, more of a business, I can see that a lot of this is motivated by money. That membership, though it is encourage for people to join the church to have the truth, there's also money involved. One of the commandments you have to follow is paying tithing, which is 10% of your income is given to the church, no matter what. So that's something I did for my whole life. That's something my parents did. That's something that the average member of the church is doing, giving 10% of their income always to the church. Now, this is funneled back into church-related things, but ultimately, the church has billions of dollars and is not paying taxes and still encouraging people to give their money to them. The church's perspective, again, is like, we're doing all of this to prepare for Christ to come. From my perspective now, I don't believe that Jesus Christ is going to descend and have a second coming that ushers in this whole new era of living. So it's hard to not look at my mission as being kind of tricked into being a salesperson for an organization. But I also want to recognize that I really wanted to go on a mission. I really did have fun. I was very motivated. I was very grounded. I learned a lot. I did really well. I met a lot of people. I pushed myself hard. And ultimately, all of the times that I thought I was succeeding because there was some greater force outside of me, God, Jesus, the Holy Ghost, working through me, I can recognize that the power I was pulling to give me courage, to help me overcome my fears, to help me cope with the day-to-day life of doing something so different than real life, all of that power came from within me. And it's interesting. I specifically remember getting to a point on my mission where I could tell that my social anxiety was impeding the work, that I was just far too afraid of strangers and of embarrassing myself or saying the wrong thing or my Spanish not being good enough. That was impeding my success. And I remember kneeling down one night and just like basically telling God, hey, I'm giving you this. I am giving you this part of me that's socially anxious, and in return, I'm going to do the best that I can to be the best missionary, to be the most like bold, confident version of myself. And I woke up the next day, and of course, it was like a switch had flipped. I had no fears. I had no anxieties. I could talk to anyone. I could make any situation into a lesson. And at the time, I really accredited that to, again, God, and me being willing to give that to God so that he could then give me his power to be able to do a good job. Now, I do believe that there is a greater, higher power out there. I don't know exactly what that is. I do think that we are all connected through consciousness. And also, I don't think that I was talking to a man in the sky who was then willing to take away my flaws if I would do the right thing for him. Maybe that's reductive and a reductive way to put it, but I can see now that when I woke up that next day with all of this chutzpah and this energy and this ability to just go, go, go and do what I wanted to do and to be confident and to not succumb to my fears and my social anxieties, I felt on top of the world. And I was like, I am in control. I am unstoppable. And that feeling continued throughout my mission. Now, when I got back from my mission, and left the church over time, started to recognize that my beliefs were no longer aligned, there was this part of me that wondered, well, what about all of these moments where you felt empowered or you felt something actually working in you, or like you did have this incredible strength and courage that came out of seemingly nowhere? I can recognize now that that was me accessing my higher self, aligning with my higher self, and not limiting myself to the insecurities that I had always limited myself to. When it wasn't just me that I was living for, because living for me always felt vulnerable. I knew I was different from a young age, but I also knew I could blend in really well, and that dissonance was constant inside of me. There was a lot of trying to understand what about me was true versus what was told to me, knowing that there were some things I could think or say that were bad and some that were good. There was a lot of cognitive dissonance inside of me. It's interesting, though, to recognize that that feeling of being fully empowered in myself, believing in myself, confident in my abilities, and genuinely not caring how anyone else might perceive me was just aligning with my power, because that's the same feeling that I have since found as I came to terms with my sexuality and as I decided to leave the church, as I have found things that I'm passionate about, as I've found astrology and speak this other language of the soul that really means something to me. There is this passion and like unbridled sense of self that I always associated with God, or being a gift I was given from God that was meant to help further his purpose. What's interesting is when I first smoked weed, it was the first time this self-imposed barrier came down of these high expectations for myself, impossible expectations for myself, expectations of perfection. And it wasn't until I had this plant substance in my system that I was able to see past the barrier I had always been placing between my real sense of self and the mask that I would wear that would keep me safe. And I started to recognize that higher self that I met on my mission. That version of me that could do hard things, that could stomach a meal that I was sure I was going to throw up from, that could have a conversation with someone who I barely knew, that could navigate a really awkward family dynamic with a lot of grace because I was reading the room. I started to recognize that this incredible missionary version of myself that I had thought of was the unfiltered version of myself, or really the unmasked version of myself. What that looked like on my mission was, I don't care if people think I'm embarrassing or annoying or dumb for doing this, because to me, this is the most important thing that I could be doing. Again, it was easier to show up as me when it was for the sake of somebody else. But since I've left the church, I've had to recognize that I can still access that part of me that is confident, that is able to do anything, that believes in me radically. It's just a lot more scary because I don't have a label to hide behind or something to default to. This isn't for a church or an organization. This is just for me. And a lot of my unwiring since my mission has been taking the feeling of being totally grounded in yourself and aligned and dedicated to something that you really love and trying to remove the shame from that. I have a lot of stories for my mission. I spent a lot of time walking through trailer parks, meeting beautiful people and forming friendships that I never would have found otherwise. I also found myself in some really spooky situations sometimes. I remember one time a companion and I met this guy on the side of the road. Literally, we're in our car. He's outside. We start talking to him. We end up giving him a mini lesson through the window and asking him if we can come visit his family to have a return lesson. In our mission, the way it was officially considered, you had a new investigator, is if you meet them, you teach them at least one thing, and you have a return appointment. So we were like, hell yeah. We found this random guy. We didn't even have to get out of our car, and we have a new investigator. Investigator is what we call the people who are looking into the church. I believe now they have missionaries just call them friends. That kind of makes my butt pucker. But when I say investigators, I mean people who we met who we were teaching about the church. So I remember we go to this guy's house. Vibe off as soon as we walk in. His wife and his daughters are acting very odd, and we quickly got the vibe that this man was potentially leading a weird culty thing within his family with his wife and his daughters. Why was I at the ripe age of 20 in this situation? Because I just was naive. That's what it comes down to. There is really this feeling of I'm unstoppable, like the Lord will protect me no matter what. I can never be in a situation that's too scary or too dangerous. I feel like I've blocked actually a lot of this out of my mind, this experience with the guy who we got such creepy energy from. One of his daughters ended up having kind of a psychotic episode in front of us once. The energy was very dark. She was almost expressing her desire to leave the situation, and we were just two women in our early 20s sitting there trying to pray all of this away. We did end up talking to a member about it who was a lawyer because we were very uncomfortable with the situation and the vibes we were picking up on. My mission president did eventually get angry at us for talking to the member lawyer. He didn't want us to get involved with things legally. So there are some times where you're in those situations where you're like, this isn't safe, and I don't even have a weapon on me. And all I've got is a calf-length skirt and a whole bunch of ass sweat. Honestly, being on a mission is really finding yourself in a lot of situations where you're thinking, how did I get here? How did we get here? In 7th grade, I sang that song, Decode by Paramore, at the talent show, and I stood completely still the whole time. I didn't move my arms or my legs, including during the instrumental, what's that called in the middle of the song? Whatever. I want to get into a few stories. I'm finding myself feeling a scarcity feeling right now of how could I possibly cover everything about a mission in all of my stories in one episode. Girl, I'm talking to myself. Get over yourself. Okay. I have to learn that not having all of the information does not discredit my validity. As a Gemini moon who needs information in order to feel grounded and safe in myself and validated in my emotions and feelings, when I feel like I'm not giving somebody else all of the information, I feel like I'm essentially worthless. So I'm going to do my best not to bully myself into trying to think of more than I can think of. And I'm going to lean on into my little old intuition, my little notes. And you know what? I'm just going to tell some stories. And together, we're just going to go on this journey of what it looked like to be La Hermana Thompson in the New Mexico Albuquerque mission, primarily most of my time in El Paso for 18 months, technically 17 months, because the last month of my mission I had to cut off so that I could come home early enough to apply to the advertising creative track at BYU so that I didn't have to wait an entire year to continue my education. Scandalous! She went home a month early because she was a naughty girl. No, I literally just was told by mission president, and he was like, no, dude, go home early. Don't wait another year. Thank God. So one time I was with a companion, and we were seeing this woman. Her whole family was Mormon, but she was not. She had 2 children and a husband. All 3 were baptized. She was not. She had been something that people call an eternigator, which is an eternal investigator. So someone who's been looking into the church for decades even, but has never pulled the trigger, never decided to get baptized. Everyone who meets one of these people thinks they're going to be the missionary to do it. That's just how it goes, okay? So this one time we were having dinner at their house, and then afterward we were going to teach a lesson to everyone, okay? We sit down for dinner, and about halfway through I realize, I'm going to shit my pants, yeah. So I go to the bathroom, I excuse myself. I proceed to absolutely unload on this toilet, okay? There, I'm just going to say it. I was also on my period. So when I stand up, I see a messy, bloody mess. And my first thought is, dear God, that's not going down. And my second thought was, well, let's just try. So I flushed it. The water starts to raise. The water starts to raise. The water starts to raise, and it stops just before it overflows. I'm panicking at this point because what do you even do if your toilet overflows when you're at your home and there's like poop on the floor? I don't know how to do that in someone else's home, and I also didn't know how to go out there and say like, hey, I'm so sorry I clogged your toilet and it overflowed, all in Spanish. Maybe I could probably do it now, but at the time I was panicked. So brilliantly, I decide, oh, I'm going to flush it again, forgetting that when you flush the toilet, water gushes in. So I flush. Instantly, Niagara Falls. There is blood, shit, piss, toilet paper, overflowing. Is all over the floor. And this room, it's slightly slanted, so I start to notice immediately that all of this is pooling in the corner of the bathroom, which is extremely disgusting, and I was extremely panicked and way more stressed about having to admit that this happened to me than this actually happening. So what did I do? I look around and I grab the only thing I can see, which is 2 crystal white, shiny, clean towels. Yep, I think you know where this is going. And I throw them on the ground and I start to just soak up this overflowing disaster. Now, at one point it's not stopping. And I was begging God to take this situation away from me. And I eventually realized there's only one way I'm going to be able to unclog this. And it's all by myself. So I rolled up my sleeve. I reached in. And I had to physically dislodge the poop that was blocking the toilet. I can't believe I'm telling this on the internet. Yeah, I can. What happens then? Oh, the rest of it goes down. Incredible. I am obviously scrubbing my hands like I just had my own shit on it. I don't want that anywhere near me. And I'm also looking around at these shiny white towels that have since lapped up all of the poopy bloody water and thinking, what do I do? What do I do? What's a girl to do? Oh, I know. Maybe I'll just fold them and toss them back over the shower. No one will ever know until they go to use that towel and see that it's covered in shit and blood. I was panicked, okay? I was panicked, and I did what I could. I go back to the dinner table, and I'm sitting there thinking, they're going to find me out. I'm a fraud. I must cover up my tracks. So I go back into the bathroom because I lied. I'm like, oh, forgot my rings. I go back in there. What do? Oh, I just toss them in the bathtub because that's so much less obvious. But what I was thinking is at least they won't notice until we're gone, and then maybe I just never have to see them again, you know? So we proceed after dinner to have this incredibly intense emotional lesson where essentially my companion is giving this woman an ultimatum of you either decide to get baptized or we're gone. And we were really good friends with her too, so this was honestly kind of a dick move because she was great. She just was like, I don't want to get baptized. And in the middle of this, the woman who we were teaching decided to go take some time in the back room to kind of like pray on her own. My companion goes to the bathroom. She comes back. This woman comes out. She basically tells us like, no, I'm not going to get baptized. We're sobbing. She's sobbing. Everyone is devastated. It's way past our curfew. And we finally leave. We're sitting in the car bawling. And my companion looks at me and she goes, Hermana, I just really thought that this was going to work out. Like when I went into the bathroom, I just fell to my hands and knees to pray. And I'm like, wait, what? And she's like, I couldn't help it. I fell to my knees and I just was kneeling by the toilet, begging God to help her. And I'm like the toilet, like your hands and knees were on the floor, like where the toilet was. I have to tell you something. I'm really sorry about it, but moments before you did that, the floor was covered in my bodily fluids, in my poop, in my pee, in my blood. It's kind of giving sacrament in a different way. I never told them that happened, the family. I never owned up to it. I never went there again. I never heard anything about the shiny white towels. I couldn't. What was I supposed to do? Every missionary I know has a good poop story, but I wonder if these members have their own good poop story about the little white girl who showed up and pooped all over their floor and didn't clean it up. Well, tried to, but used their fluffy white towels to do so. Would I do it again? Probably. Or maybe I would just sneak out the window. I'm not sure. Either way, I'm glad I never have to be in that situation again. Another weird thing that happens sometimes on your mission is you wake up one morning, this happened for me, and we had a series of letters that had been delivered to us from our mission president, and we were instructed to read the letter first thing when we woke up at 6:30 a.m. before we did anything else. Basically, the letter said, cancel all of your plans for the day because you're staying inside all day to read the whole Book of Mormon all by yourself. This is like, I believe it's 531 pages, fine print. And while we're at it, let me just read a quick sample so you know, this isn't easy reading, you know? This is not even, like, I've read a Harry Potter book in a day. This is different. Just gonna open randomly somewhere in the Book of Mormon. Okay, these are not easy words. It's like, wherefore, do the things which I have told you I have seen that your Lord and your Redeemer should do. For this cause have they been known unto me, that ye might know the gate by which ye should enter. For the gate by which ye should enter is repentance and baptism by water, and then cometh the remission of your sins by fire and by the Holy Ghost. None of that's easy to read, let alone comprehend. And to do that in an entire day meant I had to do it because he said you have to do it. And so I was like, I'm going to do it no matter what. Interesting thing too about the church is there are rules, but then sometimes you can bend the rules if it's going to benefit. So for this, it was like, cancel all your plans and read the Book of Mormon in one day, and you don't have to go to bed at 10:30 as long as you finish the Book of Mormon. So I was reading the Book of Mormon from 6:30 a.m. to 1:30 a.m. I went to bed 3 hours past my bedtime. I do remember. At the end of the Book of Mormon, there's something that people call Moroni's promise. Basically, Moroni, he's a Book of Mormon prophet, and he's like, if you read this book and you pray, it'll tell you if it's true. There's also something else that the church has said over years that's like, if the Book of Mormon isn't true, none of it's true. Which, tough to like tie yourself to that because historians have most definitely proven that the Book of Mormon is not accurate factually, but I digress. When I finished the Book of Mormon at 1:30 a.m., I'm obviously feeling this pressure to like kneel down and be like, I'm going to do Moroni's promise. I'm going to pray and I'm going to ask if it's true. And I truly remember just being so tired and being like, I read it. Is it true? I think that's a yes. Okay, cool. It's true. Good night, and going to bed and getting only 5 hours of sleep that night before I was to spend an entire day in 2 layers of clothing in the 105-degree El Paso heat There were times when I would feel a drip of sweat go from the crown of my head all the way down my neck, down my back, down between my butt cheeks, and just pool there in my garment bottoms. There were also times when I would lift up my calf-length skirt while sitting in the car, put it over the steering wheel so that I could get some air conditioning going up and aerating my coochie. Aerating? I know that's the thing where you push the thing in the grass and the little pellets come up, but I'm not sure if it's the same as airing out. Either way, I would put my skirt over the steering wheel while I drove to air out the coochie that was being restricted by high-waisted spandex biker shorts and a spandex shade shirt underneath. Shout out to shade shirts. Don't come back. So that was the time that I read the Book of Mormon in one day. And I've never done it since because I don't want to. Another situation you find yourself in as a missionary is, oh no, I'm horny. How did I get here? And how do I stray away from this? Because I don't want to be engaging in satanic behavior, like thinking about my horniness. God forbid I have the idea of masturbating. I didn't masturbate my whole mission because I was too scared. But you know what? Shout out to the people who did. You guys are the real ones, and I'm glad you had that for yourself, and I hope you didn't feel guilty. I did, however, have a time where my companion and I were having dinner at someone's house. We were sitting at bar stools. The couple who was feeding us was standing behind the counter, just chatting. This was a home where you took off your shoes before you entered the home. So I'm sitting on the bar stool. My feet are resting gently on the bar that holds the feet. All is well until I accidentally move my foot just the wrong way. And, well, got a little sensation that I hadn't felt in years. Oh no. Oh no, when I move my foot just like that, I'm horny. Oh no, when I move my foot just like that, I'm a little turned on. Oh no, I have the choice. Do I keep moving my foot a little bit like that while I'm sitting here eating spaghetti in front of this couple who is just chit-chatting about life and the gospel? Or do I cut it off, restrict myself from the pleasures of humanity, and spiral in shame about the fact that a bar stool turned me on? I was tempted. I was tempted to keep rubbing that little foot as long as it took. And ultimately, the shame, the fear, they won. And the embarrassment, because I thought, oh my God, I could potentially get off on a bar stool right now. Not just sitting on it, like the bar stool could be the thing that gets me off. And that is kind of incredible, but also maybe the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to me. Looking back, though, I'm like, okay, so I was horny. What am I going to shame myself for that? Okay. I don't think I ever really had any crushes on members, though. There might have been one. I never broke any big mission rules. I was very obedient. And also, I did have a lot of fun. I would take every opportunity to make something fun. So we would have activities with the other missionaries. And I'm like, this is our time to play, right? There was a family in one area that was very wealthy, and every Monday when we had P Day, which stands for Prep Day, where you do your laundry, you write emails, you grocery shop, etc., you get ready for the week, and you also have like a few hours to hang out with your companion or with other missionaries in your little area. This family opened up their big, beautiful, wealthy backyard to us that had a pool, which you're not allowed to swim as a missionary or go in the ocean or lakes or anything like that. But they also had a volleyball court. They had this pavilion with all these couches, and they had a trampoline, which I think was also a no-no, but we did trampoline. Whoopsies! And I remember one day insisting that I was going to assign every single person in that group an archetype based on their personality of who we would be in one big happy family, okay? I was the mom, someone was the dad, and then I got specific. It's like, you are the rich single aunt who never gets married but always wishes she does. You are the uncle that no one wants around but you come anyway. You are the cousin who's waiting for her mission call. You are the grandma who smells like a weird piece of toast or cheese, and that was my right to do that. Another time on my mission, there were 2 sets of missionaries in the ward or congregation we were serving in. Me and my companion and these 2 elders. We became besties, the 4 of us. We called ourselves the Goons. Don't ask me why. I can't remember, but we did have fun, okay? You're technically not supposed to, like, hang out, like, 2 elders, 2 sisters, so, like, we wouldn't because that's breaking the rules, but we would try to get people to have dinners with us at the same time so we could all hang out. One time, I think it was a woman who was no longer super active in the church, but she was baptized, and she had somebody else who was interested in the church. She invited us and the elders over for dinner. We get there. We get in the car. We think we're going to a restaurant. That is allowed as long as it's within your boundaries. We start to drive. Where's civilization? It starts to disappear. There's dust all around me. Why am I in the desert? This is not where I'm supposed to be. I think I'm officially out of cell phone range and definitely out of the range of where I'm supposed to be. What do we pull up to? A casino in the middle of nowhere. These women, these two, I'm going to say they were in their early 70s. These two women in their early 70s took 4 Mormon missionaries to a casino to go to the buffet for dinner. Just take a minute and think about that. You walk in, the delicious smell of cigarettes hangs in the air. Someone probably is peeing their pants at the slot machine they've been at for, I don't know, 12 plus hours. And then there we are, 4 Mormon missionaries, modest as can be, tags on, wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, looking around like, uh-oh, try not to make eye contact with that big poster of that big video game with the girl with the big cartoon titties. And also thinking, we are outside of where we're supposed to be. We don't have a car. We do want a buffet, and also we don't want to offend these people, so I guess we have no choice but to just stay and get as much food as we want at the buffet. So we did. We spent the whole evening at the buffet. You know what's funny? Praying over your food out loud at a casino buffet. That's funny. Also maybe embarrassing. But we did what we had to do. You see, you end up in a lot of situations where, yes, you are teaching people about church, but you're also at the mercy of them as human beings. Ultimately, you can't offend them. I don't actually know what I was going to say. So yeah, you just find yourself in situations like that where you're like, oh, I am locking eyes right now with the biggest booty I've ever seen sticking out of the tiniest shorts I've ever seen, while I'm also trying to ask this person if they want to be baptized. And you know what? That's balance, baby. I could go on and on. I'm realizing now that as I'm talking about this, I don't know how streamlined any of this is, and maybe that's because my thoughts about my mission aren't streamlined. They're very much so complicated and hold a lot of mixed, contradictory feelings. Ultimately, I'm really grateful that I went on my mission for the reasons that I spoke of earlier. And I also generally think it will be something that I am unpacking for the rest of my life. I think religion, Mormonism themselves, I will be unpacking for the rest of my life, but also my mission and the experiences that I had and the lessons that I learned, but also like what I internalized on my mission. I'm grateful that I had that because I think it was extremely foundational for me in gaining my independence and also beginning to form my own idea of spirituality and what that means to me and what that looks like and how that can live on its own just because it's what I feel and what is true to me. I have mixed feelings. I have some sad feelings about wishing I could have treated some people in a way that was more human and less robotic, that I could have heard them, met them where they were, rather than waiting to prescribe them with something to fix, quote unquote, or make things better or easier. But also, I don't really fully believe in regrets because I truly believe that at every point in my life, I've been doing the best that I can with the information that I have. And I can't hold myself accountable past me for what current me knows. This was 10 years ago. I was a different person, you know? I have changed so much since then. And I think in a lot of ways, the independence that I gained on my mission has been the foundation for that, for allowing me to continually make decisions that feel right for me, even if they felt slightly radical. Now, serving a mission, not radical when you're raised Mormon. Going at 21 when everyone else had gone at 19, when I was already into college, already into the program that I was going to be doing, that felt slightly radical. And there was something about making that choice and going and committing to that and committing to me that was really important in learning to choose myself, and something that I would continually reinforce and have continually reinforced since then in different ways as I've come to terms with life and my beliefs and myself and my body and my brain and my spirituality and my gifts. There are so many different ways in which I have had to champion my individuality and trust myself, like I did when I decided to go on a mission, even though I was like, am I ruining my career? In that way, I look back and I'm really grateful for that experience and how it was foundational for me. I also just had fun. I made friends. I had delicious food. Was I sometimes fed so much food that I would literally feel like I was going to explode and I would need 5 minutes in the front seat of the car to lean the seat all the way back and just close my eyes and weep slightly because I thought that if I didn't, I would literally take a step, shit my pants, explode, vomit, or collapse altogether, internally combust. What is it? Spontaneous combustion? That's been on my mind for most of my life. The last thing I kind of want to touch on is the experience of coming home from your mission, because every missionary who goes out obviously comes home. It's not easy. You think it would be like all fun and games, be like, I'm finally home. But when you've been living in an alternate reality for years, restricting yourself from watching TV or movies or listening to normal music or wearing jeans or normal clothes, or I remember when I got home at the airport, one of my friends said the word ass to me, and I started to cry because I had been so separated from anything secular and from anything that was deemed unholy. When you're finishing your mission, there is a heavy emphasis on preparing to go home and get married. Essentially, it's very encouraged to prioritize marriage, to prioritize keeping your mission goals as much as you can afterward, as far as like going to the temple and reading your scriptures and praying. And they have you prepare to come home in a way that's like, I'm going to have the control to do all of this. But then you're thrown back into the real world where you have to balance all of these things. There's no rules holding anything in place. You have the reality of life and external circumstances fire hosing themselves at you. And also you're like, I don't know how to talk about anything other than Jesus. I feel like I have no purpose because I went from knowing exactly what I need to do every day to not having any clue what I need to do. I need to get married, but I haven't touched someone else of the opposite sex in years. And also, I don't have a personality. I don't remember what I like. I don't remember what I don't like. I don't remember how to socialize in a way that isn't just going along to further the agenda. And for me, that looked like jumping right into the first relationship that I had the opportunity to be in and staying in that for 3.5 years, even though we weren't compatible. And even though we broke up multiple times, and even though we ultimately didn't actually want to marry each other, I wanted to get married because I felt like that's what I was supposed to do. And that just is weird. It's weird to have a goal to just like marry someone ASAP rather than really ground in yourself and know yourself. And then if you meet somebody who meets you where you are and you both make your life better, to then date each other and then decide if that commitment is something you want to enter into. But I do think there's something kind of sinister about having teenagers, as soon as they graduate, leave, be immersed in a religious experience that encourages them to turn off all of their natural urges, and then to come home and to marry someone as soon as possible who is also dedicated to this same religion and organization and raising their family in that, and to make that decision together and then start having kids as soon as possible before you're able to establish a sense of self, because that you're much more likely to stay in the church if you got married because the thing you had in common with the person you married was the church. If your kids are involved, if your whole family is involved, if your whole young adulthood has been spent committed in a marriage to someone else and to a family, I think it's less likely that you will get to a point in your later adulthood and be like, oh, yeah, now's the time I'm going to go ahead and unravel everything and question my existence and question if this thing is actually true that I've been taught. Like, no, your whole life is wrapped up in this. And it is just interesting to think about that. Like, teenagers and young adults at their prime being very much so conditioned to meet certain expectations and requirements outside of themselves, but that determine their whole life, you know? Going on a mission for 18 months or 2 years, that's a huge decision. Ultimately, what it comes down to is that decision was made for the sake of the church. Even if you feel like you did that from a place of truth or whatever, you're ultimately still making a big decision about a big chunk of your life at a really fresh part of your life to dedicate it to something that's outside of you. Marriage as well. I've had people tell me that they got married to someone because they had a crush on their testimony. Your testimony being what you believe to be true about the church. There are some people who get married right away so that they can do what they're supposed to do, and they've known this person for 3 months and they're not actually attracted to them. Turns out one of them is gay, and then they have this terrible marriage where they're not able to actually be themselves because neither of them know who they are. Again, maybe I'm being aggressive, maybe I'm being reductive. You know what? My dad got home from his mission. 4 months later, my mom and my dad were married. Is that insane? Absolutely. But I'm glad that worked out because here I am, right? And this comes back to I am grateful for being raised in the church. And I'm also now, as I'm no longer a part of it, feeling compelled to reclaim that which has made me who I am, and also to be able to let myself have opinions about it. Because for a lot of my life, I didn't have opinions about anything unless they were told to me. My opinions were determined by what the church said, or my family said, or my older siblings said, or my friends said. And part of doing this pod, Emily and I are just like, let's just say shit. Let's just get it out there, say what we want, allow ourselves to change, allow our words to be free-flowing and our opinions to change with the tides, etc. That's not something we felt was allowed for most of our lives. So now just even taking this time to sit down for an hour and to yap to myself, to yap to you guys about what comes up when I start to think about my time as a missionary, that's healing for me. And it also is reclaiming part of me that feels like I have to do things the quote unquote right way, the true way, in order for it to be valid. That's not the case. We're valid as people just because we exist. We're all souls. No one is better than anyone else. No belief is better than another belief. We're all just doing our best. And reflecting on how much I've changed in the past 10 years since I left on my mission to now, I'm just grateful for every step of the way that I have allowed myself to evolve and change, even if it's come with pain or fear or growing pains or worry about the future. I feel so grateful to look back at all of these different versions of me and to know that I've always been doing my best and that I'm going to keep doing that. Because why wouldn't I? I'm going to keep evolving. I'm going to keep reflecting, and I'm going to keep acting differently in the future. And that's what life is. That's what living is. So thank you all for tuning back in today as I yapped even more about my experience as a missionary. We'll see how cohesive this is. For all I know, I could listen back and it could be one big run-on sentence. But you know what? That's kind of what my life feels like. One big run-on sentence. You think I'm kidding, but I'm completely serious. My brain, I was born. I started to have thoughts, maybe even in the womb. I don't really know how that works. Anyway, the thoughts never stopped. So I've had a run-on sentence going on for 31 and a half years now. And thanks for tuning in. For Emily's solo episode, I am going to give her a theme. And that theme is sparkle. Sparkle, sparkle, sparkle. That's Emily's theme for the episode she will be tackling on her own. Stay tuned to find out what she'll be unpacking next week while I'm out of town. And the following week, we will be back, the both of us, with our monochromatic outfits to unpack something new. But thank you, cousins. Love you so much, truly. So, so much. Thank you for all of the interactions, all of the feedback. Please don't forget to follow us on Spotify and on Instagram at Cousin Closet Podcast. Please rate 5 stars, because why not? Comment, review, share. Any interactions that you make, very helpful, very appreciated. I'm not afraid to grovel a little. My voice is telling me I've been talking for too long, and so is the timer. So I'm going to wrap up, but I love you all, and I hope you enjoyed coming on this mission with me. Goodbye. Or should I say, adios? Oh, God, I need to be put down. Okay, goodbye.